What's up, Mets fans? Welcome back to Talking Mets with Rob. How is everybody doing today? So my Wi-Fi is a little sketchy right now, but that's okay. Hopefully everybody's doing good on this Mets off day once again. Monday was a postponement, and today is the regular scheduled also 4 hour Mets, and the New York Mets did right the ship for at least the 2 games remaining in the Pittsburgh series. Mike's not there. I know the things here. In my terrible. Give me a second. Give me a second. 1 second. Hold on. All right, I think I'm a little bit better. Let me see. Do I sound better? I know I'm here. I see myself. Mic check. Mic check. Okay, good. Alrighty, guys. Beautiful. All right, everybody can hear me now. Good. So now that you didn't hear me cursing you guys out, just joking, guys. Just joking. All right, what's up, Mets fans? Welcome back to Talking Mets here, Rob, and Mets Talk Live here on this Mets off day. Don't forget to please vote on the poll. How confident are you that the Mets are going to win the NL East? And guess what, guys? We are 24 games remaining in the 2022 season. And you know what? There's only about, let's see, 18 more games left against subpar teams. Everybody else, the other 6 games against the Brewers and the Braves are teams that are actually either going to be in the playoffs or are fighting for a playoff spot. So the Mets have the opportunity in 24 more games to put a stamp on this 2022 season. And what better way to put a stamp on the season before you get into the playoffs in winning the NL East? And I know some people say that, it does, the Mets are 10.5 games up on the wild card in the first wild card, so it's not that big of a deal. But if you look at the bracket the Mets will be in if they win the division, you don't have to worry about facing the Braves or the Dodgers in the NLDS. If you pass, you got to play that 3-game wildcard series, even though it's going to be at home. You got to use your big guns in the rotation. And if you use DeGrom, Bassett, and Scherzer in 3 games, well, you're going to be starting with God knows who in game 1 of the NLDS if you make that round, and you're already starting behind the 8 ball. So the division, as much as anything can happen in the playoffs, you do not want to lose the division and then get stuck into that part of the bracket during the playoff bracket. Not saying that the Brewers or the Cardinals or anybody else, the Phillies or the Padres couldn't beat us. Of course they can. But you don't want to go through the road where you have to face either the Dodgers or the Braves, or whoever is actually, well, the Dodgers will be waiting in that bracket. And then after the Dodgers, pretty good chance you might be facing the Braves in the NLCS. You'd rather just face either the Braves or the Dodgers in the NLCS. So you don't have to worry about them at least until the NLCS. And I think that's the most important thing that I think we have to look into, because why make it harder for yourselves? Not saying that the Cardinals, the Brewers, the Padres, the Phillies won't be hard. Of course they will be. There's certain things about each team that you would worry about. You worry about the Cardinals lineup. With the Padres, they have a really good pitching rotation, and their lineup could be very dangerous. We already know about the Dodgers and how good they are. The same thing goes for even the Phillies, for that matter. Even though they can't play defense, that lineup can bash a pitching staff. So there's a lot, and the Brewers the same thing. We're going to see them in about a week and a half, about a week or so. So it's imperative that the Mets should do. Obviously, they're going to do everything they can to win this division. 24 games to go. It's down to the wire. And congratulations to all the Braves fans that made sure they got on my stream when the Mets lost that first game against Pittsburgh. And talking about first place, congratulations. You were with the Mets for 14 hours in first place. I hope you liked it. I hope you enjoyed it. You actually have somebody in the division that's actually testing you, which is very nice. And, I have no problem with Braves fans coming on my channel and I wouldn't say I don't. I hate the trolling. I think trolling's so stupid. I don't go on another sports channel or a Braves channel or a Dodger channel and troll. You want to talk about your team, you want to root for your team, I'm all for that. That's what sports is all about. You want to talk shit back and forth, that's what it's all about. But when you get to the point where you're not being realistic about the team that you're actually chasing for 147 days, and oh, by the way, you're still chasing, by the way, until you actually are up a half a game, you officially have not caught anybody. All you did was just, you just ended up on the same line for about a half a day before you actually end up in actual first place. And I think everybody believes, and I think there's a pretty good chance. Now, I do think the stretch that the Braves are going to be going through, they're going through Seattle on the West Coast, the Giants on the West Coast, and then they play the Philadelphia Phillies. That's about a 10, 11 game stretch, which is not going to be easy for them. You got Seattle, who looks like they probably have no issue making the playoffs, but they want to make sure they stand their ground in the seeding they're in. And then you go to the Giants, even though it's a Giant team that's not as good as last year, that's a 4-game series. We know how 4-game series are. They're not easy. You're going on the West Coast. They're on the West Coast for 7 days. And then they got to play Philadelphia, who is fighting for a wild card spot. And they're a team that the Braves have had trouble with this year. The big reason why the Mets have been leading to the division all year is because of the different records between each other. When the Mets and the Phillies series record is 14-5 for the Mets, the Braves are at 500 against the Philadelphia Phillies. So the Braves struggle against the Phillies. And let's be honest, if we can continue to look at, and I know Braves fans don't want to admit this, but if you look at the records, besides the Dodgers, every other good team, they don't have a good record against. So, Seattle's going to be a test. And I think this Marlins series, the Marlins have lost 9 in a row. And everybody knows I hate going into a series where a team lost 6, 7, 8, 9 in a row, because eventually they're going to win again. And let's just hope it's not until 4 days later, because the Mets, I'm telling you right now, tomorrow, they better put up runs early. Don't give the Marlins a chance to breathe. Shove their heads right back underwater and keep them there, because you don't want to give them any life. We know in years past, if some people want to talk about history, we know the Marlins in September has been the Mets' biggest bugaboo. This year, the Mets have not had no issues with the Marlins, and I do not want it to start on September 9th. I don't think it will. I think the Mets, the last 2 nights, showed when their backs are completely against the wall. And let's be honest, guys. Yesterday's doubleheader, the Mets had to win both games. They could not afford to lose a series to the Pirates. Their backs were 100% against the wall yesterday. And what did they do? They blew the Pirates out in game 2. It was basically a non-contest. In 1 inning in the 6th, when Bass had a little bit of trouble, that was the only time there was any threat of the Pirates getting close in that game. So both of those games, the Mets took advantage of it. You saw the entire lineup produce the bottom of the lineup, and I think Tyler Naquin is going to be a big part of this. And Luis Guillorme is coming back soon, and Tyler McGill should be back probably in this Marlins series, if not back in the homestand. And on top of that, when it comes to the fact that the Mets are getting healthier, and then Eduardo Escobar for the last 10 days have been looking like the Escobar we all thought we were going to get for Eduardo Escobar. Remember, guys, Eduardo Escobar was the guy that was supposed to be the protection behind Pete Alonso batting 5th. That was even with Cano, with Dominic Smith, with J.D. Davis. Escobar was the number 5 hitter that was supposed to protect, but he was so bad basically the entire year you couldn't have him behind Pete Alonso. And if Eduardo Escobar is the hitter that we see, and he's going to be like that the rest of the way, you put his ass right back in the 5 hole, right behind Pete Alonso, because he's a switch hitter. You can put him in a lineup, and this is what I'm going to say right now. Sal Licata also said it too, and I listen to him a lot because I work around the time he's on the radio. He said it. Eduardo, when Luis Guillorme is healthy, you put Luis Guillorme at 3rd, you bat him 8th, and you put Eduardo Escobar as your DH, and you have Vogelback and Ruff as your bench pieces, your lefty and righty bench piece when you need it in a spot later in a ball game. I completely think that would be the way to go, because I honestly think it makes sense to put Escobar at the DH spot, because Luis Guillorme is better at third base than Escobar. Even though Escobar has been pretty good defensively this year, you can't make that mistake and not put Guillorme at third base every day. And you still have Escobar in the lineup as DH. He's switch hitter, so it doesn't matter who's pitching on the mound. Guillorme in the 8th spot will put a better at bat than whoever else you decide to put in that 8th spot. You know, he'll have long at bats. He'll have, at least you know, he'll have a productive at bat. Even if it's a strikeout, you'll know that it's not going to be a 3-pitch strikeout. He is going to work the counts. He's going to try to put the bat on the ball. I completely think that at this point now, when Luis Guillorme becomes healthy, Vogie and Ruff are the 2 righty and lefty on your bench that you can use in later games. You know, like if there's a spot in the lineup where somebody might be struggling and you want to pinch it Vogelback for a right-hander, you know, whoever's struggling, or Ruff, whatever it is. I know they haven't been playing well, but I'd rather them seeing them coming off the bench and having 1 at-bat late in the game than 3 at-bats where they do absolutely nothing. So I think that's going to stretch out the lineup, number 1. Number 2, it's going to strengthen your bench, because when Vogelback or Ruff play, it lessens your bench. It doesn't make, you know, everybody thought the Mets were going to have the best bench players in the league, you know, with Dominic Smith, with J.D. Davis, you know, Luis Guillorme. It was, you know, with Tomas Nino. It looked like a very good bench that you can fill in for a couple of days, giving the guys days off. But, you know, we lost that. We lost our bench when guys started to go down. And then let's give a little bit of credit to Tyler Naquin. Let's not go crazy about Tyler Naquin, because if you look at his numbers at PNC Park, he has the best numbers in his career at PNC Park. Let's see what he can do in Miami. He's going to get starts, considering that Marte is going to be out probably the first 2 games. He might be back maybe late in the series, but most likely back on the homestand. So give Tyler Naquin. I don't care about the lefty righty. Naquin's hot. You put his ass in the lineup. I don't want to see, you know, because there's a lefty on the mound, you can't play Tyler Naquin. Bull crap. Put his ass in there. He's hot. Let him gain off that confidence. You might as well milk every ounce of offense you can get to him. He can play defense. We know that. He's going to be playing right field. It's not you got to throw him in center. And if he's hot, let him keep going. You know, this might be the time where finally your bench pieces, your role players are the ones that, you know, have to pick up the big boys who have been doing it all year. I think it's time for the fact that let your role players be your role players. This is the time when these guys can get a couple of playing times with the nagging injuries and give a little bit of a break for guys like Alonso and Lindor, who, you know, Lindor looked like he was getting out of it a little bit in the last 2 games of the Pittsburgh series. Alonso was kind of still hit or miss, but he looked a little bit better. Everybody looked better in the lineup. You know, I wish I would have done a parlay yesterday, because I think 8 out of the 9 guys got hits yesterday in the Mets lineup. If I would have record a hit for 8 out of those 9 players, that would have been a very nice parlay, but I didn't do it. So with that said, excuse me, the Mets are 87-51 on the season, right? According to Mr. Met, how buddy? 87-51, 24 games left in the season. It's very nice to see that the Mets came out with their backs completely against the wall, took advantage of the doubleheader, and just laid it on the Pittsburgh Pirates, which they should have done the entire series. But I'm not going to cry about spilled milk, because that game is done. You can't change it. But going forward in this Marlins series, I have not checked the pitching matchups yet. Let's see. As we know, we're live. Let's do it live. Why not? So Edward Cabrera, who actually looked pretty good for the Marlins, with a 4-2 record at 2.39 ERA. So that's not going to be easy. He's a right-handed pitcher. The Mets are still to be determined. Who knows is going to start that game? Let's see. Saturday is Pablo Lopez, and Sunday is Jesus Luzardo. So you're facing decent pitchers, but you're missing Alcantara. Even though the Mets have handled Alcantara this year, you don't want to face one of the best pitchers in baseball if you don't have to. So it's Cabrera, it's Lopez, and it's Luzardo. So the Mets got to take care of business. It's just that simple. The Marlins have not been good this year. They lost 9 in a row. It always scares me, as I said earlier, about 15 minutes ago. I do not like facing teams that are on an extended losing streak, and that's what the Marlins are. They got a couple of the young prospects up. They're a young team. They're a team that doesn't really have nothing to play for except playing spoiler. And you know what? They fell apart in the Braves series, even though the Braves really never really run away from any of those games against the Marlins. The Marlins do play tough. Just because they're a bad team, they do play tough. So the Mets got to stay on their game, and they got to take the offense they had in Pittsburgh, and they got to go right into it in the Marlins series. The first game tomorrow, first inning, they better work the count. They better kick some ass. They better put some runs on the board. Don't give Miami any opportunity to think they're going to be in a ball game, because with these bad teams, you've seen it in the Pirates game. Did you see a couple of those guys on the Pirates lollygagging down the first base line, not hustling? When you take a team out of a game that's bad, knowing they're not going anywhere, and you score some runs and you make it a miserable time to be at the ballpark, you're going to get games like the Pittsburgh Pirates played where they didn't want to be at the ballpark. That's the way I want to feel. The Mets fan base is going to be in Miami in droves. It's going to be a Mets. It's basically Citi Field South. There's going to be a ton of Met fans there. I know Ken, Christian, a couple other people are going to be there. I was supposed to be there, but Ken told me I wasn't allowed in Florida. So blame Ken, not me. So, so make sure you cheer on the Mets. It's obviously Citi Field South there. There's going to be a ton of Met fans there. I know about 10 people that are going to Miami to check out the games there. I still would like to actually check out the ballpark for once. I guess I'll be checking it out next year because the Marlins ain't making the playoffs. So, but whatever. Ken, you didn't give me permission. You were like, no, we don't want you here, you damn New Yorker. So, with that said, 24 games left. What is it going to take record-wise? Excuse me, and I'll let you guys this. You can say it in the comments. How many wins do the Mets need to win the division? I think the Braves are on pace to win like 109 or something like that. Again, I think this West Coast trip is going to be very telling. You know, the Braves come out of this West Coast trip. They got what? Let me see. Ken, you don't have to worry about that. I can tell you that very much. Trust me. Let me see. Give me 1 second. I just want to check something with the Braves really quick so I can get my information correct. All right. So, obviously, they start this West Coast trip tomorrow. They're off today. So, the Braves, they got 3 in Seattle, 3 in San Francisco, and then they go home to play the Philadelphia Phillies. So they got a 6-game stretch on the West Coast, Seattle and San Francisco and Philadelphia at home, a 3-game series. So it's not going to be an easy stretch for the Braves. Obviously, after the Phillies, they got Washington at home, and then they go to Philadelphia for 4. And they play Washington, and then obviously the Mets after that. So this stretch, that 9-game stretch, Seattle, San Francisco, and Philadelphia. 6 out of those 9 are on the West Coast, and then they travel back home to play Philadelphia. That 9-game stretch, if the Braves go 8-1 or 7-2, well, the Mets got to challenge. The Mets got to match it. It's very simple. But you know what? In that 9-game stretch, if you take 9 games off the schedule and you still remain in first place, well, that's about what you got 15 games left of the season. And I think all of us think that it's going to come down to that 3-game series against Atlanta in Atlanta. So, but I do think this 9-game stretch, Seattle, San Francisco, and Philadelphia, is going to determine if the series in Atlanta is really going to matter. Because if the Braves falter just a little bit, if they go even 5-4 or 4-5 or even 6-3 on that road trip, that's 3 games the Mets can pick up in Atlanta against Atlanta. And Philadelphia played Atlanta really good this year. Atlanta has had problems with Philadelphia. And in the later part of September, after they come back from the West Coast trip, they play him 7 times in a 11-game stretch, 11-day stretch. So that's not going to be easy for the Braves. And you know what? They're playing one of the better teams in the American League. And again, please check the record. I know there's some Brave fans that will check this out later because they will not show up here, because the Mets are in first place and the Mets have won. And they're not going to show up just like they didn't show up yesterday on the stream when the Mets were destroying the Pirates. The Braves fans are nowhere to be found. They could be lurking just waiting for the Mets to blow a game, but they didn't comment in the chat at all. And again, you guys know how I feel about that. If you're not going to be an actual baseball fan and show a little bit of respect from another fan base about a team that is actually stuck with you the entire year, and as good as the Braves have been, still haven't hit first place on their own yet, and it's hovering on 150 days now. It doesn't. I don't like to show a lot of respect for that because I always call that bandwagon fans, and that goes for Mets fans who show up out of nowhere and you see them at Citi Field as well, who you never see at all, and all of a sudden they pop up when the Mets are good. Bandwagon fans. Same thing when it goes for Atlanta. The same thing that goes for Yankee fans. And I think Yankee fans are the biggest culprits because, let's be honest, Yankee Stadium wouldn't be packed if it wasn't for the ton of bandwagon fans that just show up. Because let's be honest, when you're a team that wins over 90 games almost every year and makes the playoffs every year, your baseball game becomes an event. And that's why Citi Field has been a lot more packed lately, because now that they're good, it's an event now. It's not just a baseball game. So that's why I always I know this because when I sit in my season ticket seat in 515, I see people that I never seen before in that section this year. Last year, you couldn't find them in any section. So again, it's always great to have the ballpark packed. And yes, it would be nice to see Citi Field packed from year after year after year after year if the Mets continue to play and continue to put the product on the field. And that's why I'm not mad about spending a little bit of money, for Mets games or buying food or buying merchandise, because at least I know my money that I spend, I know Cohen is not going to, is not going to be, Wilpon-esque and be like, well, I'm not going to, I'm going to bargain basement for a player or two during free agency. I know if Steve Cohen wants that player, he's going to get him, just like he wanted Max Scherzer, and he wasn't letting Max Scherzer leave that room until he put pen to paper. So Mets baseball, Citi Field is now an event. Even during the National Series, it was packed at Citi Field. You didn't see that at Citi Field when the Mets weren't playing well. So it's pretty fun actually. Mets are an event now. You know what? I see more Mets hats walking around the area, which you wouldn't see otherwise. It's just, I saw it in 2015. Everybody all of a sudden was a Mets fan when the Mets made the playoffs and made that run to the World Series in 2015. You know what? If the Mets make another run, you're going to see Mets hats all over the place in New York. It's just how it goes. Now when I walk down with my Mets jersey or my Mets hat, I don't get laughed at because there's no reason to do that. You see, it's just how it works, especially in New York, when the majority of people in New York follows the leader in New York, right? People in New York follow somebody. Nobody likes to take charge and be their own person. You've seen that in politics. But with that said, and everything that's going on and the struggle, even though the Mets are above 500 in September, which they didn't look like they should be, but they are. What do the Mets have to do? Can the Mets go 18-6 in the next 24? I think that's 24, right? Yeah, 18. Sorry, I'm not a math major. 18-6 in the next 24 games. If they go 18-6, they go 18-6. Let's see. 18-6. That would be 105 wins and what, 57 losses? I don't know. Look, put it this way. If they go 18-6, say they beat up all the bad teams and they get swept by the Braves and they get swept by the Brewers. That's the 6 games that they have against a 500 team. Yeah, but Joe, if you listen to the Brave fans, when they're so ecstatic about trying to win a division, that, and it always comes down to October. But like at the end of the day, there's no doubt about it. The Braves fan wants to win the division because you don't want to go into a bracket where you're gonna have to face the Dodgers coming out of a wild card game. And as you know, you're not stupid. You know what's going on. The Braves gotta use Fried. Gotta use if Soroka comes back, they're gonna have to use Strider in a 3-game series in a wild card game going into a Dodger series. If you win that wild card round with your 3rd or 4th best starter starting a series in the NLDS against the Dodgers. So, yes, it comes down to October, but no team is going to have an easy road if they win that wild card. That goes for the Braves or the Mets, because the Braves or the Mets don't want to use their 4th starter going into a series against the Dodgers. That's very simple. Jacob, how you doing? Joe, thank you for commenting as a Braves fan. You see, you can see that. Joe Reese, he's a Braves fan. He didn't come trolling. He just made a point and made a comment. That's all you have to do if you're a Braves fan. And that's it. Yeah, exactly, Jared. And that's the thing. Like, yes, it comes down to October. But, the Braves and the Mets aren't going to sit down and be like, all right, we're 10.5 games up in the wild card, in the first wild card. Who really cares if you don't win the division? If it was the wild card where you automatically go right into the NLDS, no, I don't think anybody would care. But because you got a series either against the Central or the last wild card team or the second wild card team, you got to be careful because you don't want to face the Brewers in the wild card round because they got good pitching. You don't want to face them, even though it's going to be 3 games. The Mets and the Braves are going to have the 3 games at home if they're a wild card team. That's an advantage in itself. But again, you don't want to use your big guns in your rotation. I can assure you the Mets, even though, who would be our 4th starter? Would it be Carrasco? Would it be Walker in, game 1 or game 1 of NLDS? That's the thing that you would have to worry about. Max Fried, Soroka, Strider, you got to use those guys in the first 3 games. All you have to do is win the first 2 games and it's over. You don't have to worry about that. You can use your number 3 starter for the NLDS, but there's no guarantee of that. In these series, it's very hard to, I wouldn't be surprised if it goes to a game 3. So I kind of think that it's kind of funny. No, look, Jacob, I don't ask them to be polite. You can be a real ass towards your team, but when you don't spill out facts when you're trying to troll and you get blown up and you don't state the facts, like you can't say, oh, the Braves are going to win the division. Why? Let me know why. Don't say the roster is better. That don't mean nothing at all. Do you think the Seattle Mariners are going to look at the Braves roster and be like, yeah, they're too good, why are we even going to play? No, that's the whole point of playing the games, right? Did you see the Nationals? They beat the Mets ass and they beat the Cardinals ass as well. 2 teams that have probably about 100% chance of making the playoffs. So anybody can beat anybody on any given day. That's why Major League Baseball, the way it's set up now, you make the playoffs, you can win the World Series. Just ask the Nationals. Just ask the Braves with 88 wins last year. They weren't the favorite to win the World Series. The Yankees and the Dodgers were, and the Astros. So it's a crapshoot when you make the playoffs. But nobody, Braves fans, Mets fans, Yankee fans, Astro fans, Cardinal fans, don't want a harder road to get to the promised land. You want an easier road. Not saying that, again, the Brewers, the Cardinals, the Phillies, the Padres, not saying that they're going to be an easy road because it's going to be tough series. But again, if you can avoid playing the wild card round going into the Dodgers series in the DS, and maybe have to face in the CS against the Braves, well, you got a hard road just to get to the World Series. If you win, that's why the NL East is so important. And don't let Brave fans fool you. Even though they're like, oh, it doesn't matter if, when the Mets were leading the division, Brave fans says, oh, it matters in October. But as soon as they start getting closer to the Mets, all of a sudden they want the division. Why is that? Because they don't want to go through the Dodgers. They don't want to go through a wild card series where you get out of that wild card series and you're going to have to use your number 3 and number 4 starter against the Dodgers. And now you're already behind the 8 ball in that series because they're already rested and ready to go when the Braves got to show their 4th starter. Same thing why the Mets don't want to lose the division. Again, you don't want to go through the Dodgers and you don't want to go through the Mets to get to the World Series. That's not the way you want to go. Again, if it pans out that way, you got to do what you got to do. But with the way it's set up now, and that the wild card is not just one game now, which that's why one game anything can happen. But even if the Braves or the Mets if it was one wild card game, you throw either DeGrom or Scherzer, whoever you want to throw, or Strider or Fried in that game, at least you're going to have your number 2 and number 3 going in to the NLDS if you win that wild card round. Now, with a 3-game series and you have to win 2 games, it's not very easy anymore. It's a harder road, and nobody wants to deal with that. That's why the Braves, when they always said it's about October, of course it is. But again, you don't want to go into October behind the 8 ball before you even get out of a wild card series, because those games are not going to be easy no matter who you face. Do the Braves really want to face the Phillies, considering the fact that they haven't played well against the Phillies all year? Even though the games are in Atlanta. And then, do you want to play San Diego? San Diego's lineup can get hot at any moment, and they do have a really good pitching staff. The same thing with the Brewers. The Brewers have a very good pitching staff. And if you've seen what the offense of the Brewers have been doing lately, and see what Yelich has been doing, hitting over 450 over the last month, you don't want to face those teams in a wild card round, because all they got to do is shut you down for two games, and it's over. Oh, no, Joe. I didn't say that. I'm just... Like I said, there's a couple of Braves fans who, and they comment a lot of times, all the time, and there's some that are pretty good, but there's some that just like to troll and don't give any type of respect. Or, if you're so concerned about the Braves, go on a Braves channel. I can find you one. It's not that hard. But coming on a Mets channel and just trolling is not, it just doesn't make sense, because it really doesn't, it doesn't affect me. Like, at the end of the day, you're giving me the view. You're giving me the viewership that if you weren't here, you wouldn't give me. So, like, if you're just going to troll, you're not hurting my feelings. It's just a waste of time, because at the end of the day, the Mets are a good team. And until, how many more times do the Mets have to beat the Braves in a season to realize that the Braves won 1 series against the Mets? And if the Mets and the Braves are tied at the end of the year, and the Mets take 1 game in the one of the 3 games left against the Braves, they win the season series, and the Braves have to at least be 1 game over the Mets to win the division. That's why I said, if the Mets win 18 more games, they got 105 wins. Can the Braves get there? Yeah, of course. But I think this West Coast trip that leads to Philadelphia to Philly series at home, that's a 10-game stretch or a 9-game stretch where I think it's going to determine if the Mets are going to pull away a little bit, or the Braves are going to show how dominant of the team they were the whole year, or at least since June. But again, honestly, the Braves' record against good teams is not something that they should be riding home about. They haven't been good. They played pretty good. But if you look at the record, and the reason why the Mets, and I said this earlier, the reason why the Mets have been winning the division the entire year is because of the fact the Braves have not been as good against the Phillies as the Mets been. And against good teams, and that's over playoff teams, the Mets have a better record than the Braves. And that's the reason why the Braves are not in the first place right now, because of that. Well, committee, because it's not about because there is a lot of Brave fans that subscribe to my channel. There is a lot of Yankee fans that subscribe to my channel, especially during a lockout. And at least I saw a lot of the good side of fans when the lockout was going on, because we weren't Mets fans, we weren't Braves fans, we weren't Yankee fans, we were baseball fans. We all came together to voice our displeasure for the lockout and the waste of a time that it was. That's why I have a totally different mindset. Even though, don't get me wrong, you guys know I go after people who I think are bandwagon fans that only show up when their team wins and the Mets lose. I get on them all the time. So it's not like they get a pass, because they don't. But I seen the baseball side of fans for probably the first time, maybe because I haven't done the channel more than 2 years yet. But I don't like Yankee fans. I don't like Brave fans. I can't stand Philly fans. So, but a different perspective when you can find, because there is good Brave fans. There's real Brave fans. There's diehards. There's diehard Yankee fans. There's diehard Philly fans. And don't get me wrong, you guys know this. I go after Met fans as well. I think a lot of people think that I don't. And if everybody's been following my channel for the beginning, you guys know I kill the Mets every chance they give me. I killed Edwin Diaz. I killed Jeff McNeil. I killed the Mets offense last year when I said when they were in first place and they weren't a very good team, when they were averaging two and a half, 3 runs a game. And I killed them. I killed Lindor last year with the whole Javi Baez dump down thing. The Rat Raccoon was a joke. Luis Rojas was like basically a dartboard because it was so bad. I am one of those Met fans that I don't just put the rose-colored glasses on and go full speed ahead with positivity, because not every time you have to be positive about a team. You can critique the best team in baseball. Who's the best team in baseball? The Astros, right? Their bullpen's not very good, but their starting rotation is good. Their lineup is good. Their bullpen, you can critique that. The same thing with the Mets. I know Ken gets on me sometimes, but I do critique certain things that I do not like about this team. I have no problem. I think Buck has put a different mentality in this Mets clubhouse, where Luis Rojas might have panicked, or Met fan base have panicked. But Buck Showalter was just like, you know what? It was a tough loss. You know what? But he stays even keel with great wins and bad losses. And that's why I think this team has been so had an easier time bouncing back after bad losses, because they see their manager not panicking when there's a huge win or a huge loss. And I think that's been the difference. But I still killed Buck Showalter in those 2 games where it was a close game. It was a 2-run ball game in Pittsburgh. He decided to put Deoka in when it was a 2-run ball game when you have a rested bullpen. And Saturday against the Nationals, he decided to put Medina in a 1-run ball game that made no sense when your team still had a chance to come back. And even when we weren't scoring runs, it was only a 1-run ball game or a 2-run ball game. Well, Ken, I know you like the Mets with Buck. Buck's your favorite. You lead the Buck Showalter fan base there. And with that said, I hope, and that's why I love having fans of other teams come in when we're playing them, or even when we're not. Like Brave, when the Braves are not playing the Mets, they're playing the Pirates and the Nationals. Brave fans show up only when we lose, but when we win, everybody who's in the chat right now can account to this yesterday. What happened? The Mets were winning. Nothing was happening. You got a Brave fan, a couple of Brave fans come in when the Pirates were threatening a little bit in the 6th, and they started to troll a little bit. And then when Bassett got out of that inning, they were nowhere to be found. Be consistent. If I can be here, like I can easily, if the Mets are playing a bad game and they're losing badly, I can just shut down the stream and say, I don't want to deal with it. But I don't. I take it. I'm here. I don't have to stay on the stream. I can just end the stream and be like, why do I need the bull crap, right? But I do. Because if I can take it, and I can deal with the backlash. And this is coming from a Mets fan who had his heart stomped in 2015, 2016 with the 3-run homer by Connor Gillespie And 2006 with the curveball heard around the world with Beltran looking. 2000 losing to the Yankees in a World Series. 99, that terrible outcome in the NLCS. It just continues. The Luis Castillo drop at Yankee Stadium. I can go on and on. I don't have to keep on reminding all you about the bad times. You guys know. But we've been beaten down so much that you don't have to beat down Met fans more. We beat down ourselves enough, right? As soon as the Mets lost the 3 in a row, Met fans are already jump off a bridge. So, yeah, but again, the Braves haven't lost at all since June 1st, and they still have not taken sole possession of first place. But I don't deny that, RM. I don't. But again, but why haven't they taken over first place if they don't lose? You know why? Because when they do lose, it's at really bad times. You know that 3-game losing streak that they had about a week and a half ago after the Cardinals series, right? That could have blown their chances if the Mets actually played good ball against the Nationals and the Pirates. If the Mets would have won that series or possibly swept that series against the Nationals, we wouldn't even be talking about the Braves being near the Mets. It would be a 4 or 5 game lead. But at the time when the Mets lost and the Mets lost, the Braves lost. It happened a couple of times this year, and it actually hurt the Mets in this situation, keeping the Braves still around. Yeah. At the same time, this West Coast trip leading into a Philly series is not going to be easy. Remember, the Braves don't have the greatest record in the world against really good teams. They're facing one tomorrow, 3-game series. They haven't played the Phillies well this year. They're a 500 team against the Phillies. Big reason why the Mets are in first place, because of the records between the Phillies. The Braves are 500 against the Phillies. The Mets are 14-5. Big reason why the Mets are in first place. The other reason why is because the Mets record against better teams is a little bit better than the Braves. That's why the Mets have been in first place. That's the biggest reason. And that's basically it. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Soroka's going to help. Albies is going to help. Absolutely. But, again, that is not the end-all, be-all, because you still got a closer in Jansen, who is shaky as any closer in baseball. AJ Minter came into big spots against the Cardinals, and he blew 2 games. Minter is a problem as well, even though he has a great arm. I'm not going to say anything about the rotation of the Braves because it's been good. I think Strider is a guy that can strike out 16 against the Rockies, and then when he faces a good team, he's a 5-inning pitcher. And you've seen that many times this year with Strider. Fried is a beast. I think it's a hit or miss with Freeze. I think Freeze 9 out of 10 times will always have a good start. And one guy I don't want to face in that series, if the Mets face the Braves, is Fried, because he's that damn good. And I do understand. And you see, it's unfortunate because Brave fans don't give credit to Mets fans, but Brave fans don't want to listen sometimes and act like I'm the one that destroys Brave fans when if the Braves don't care about the Mets fans and the Mets organization, why are you playing narco when the Mets lose a ball game at Truist Park? Because they're on your mind, right? It's obvious that the Braves with their success, if you want to call it that, over the last 25 years over the Mets, 30 years over the Mets, why are you even concerning yourself with the Mets? You shouldn't, right? The same thing that goes for the Yankees and Yankee fans. They are so butthurt when the Mets beat the Yankees and they're like, oh, this is your World Series. But when the Mets beat the Yankees are like, oh, this series doesn't matter anyway. But when the Yankees beat the Mets in 2 games in a row, you see the fact that you look at it and then all of a sudden Yankee fans act like they won the World Series when they beat the Mets. So it's kind of funny. And Lion, you're wrong. Yeah, okay, but again, that's the difference, Lion. Like I said, the Mets, listen, you have to be 1 game better than the Mets. You can't tie the Mets in this division. Because if the Mets win 1 game in that series at the end of the year and you are tied at the end of the year against the Mets, you are a wild card team. You got to remember that. And as good as the Braves have been, and they've been on a historic one. What are they, 46 games over 500 since June 1st? And the Mets, they haven't been as good, obviously, but they've been 15, 16 games over 500, which obviously is the difference of why it's close. But they still have not passed the Mets. Until you do, deal with it. And again, you can beat Oakland, you can beat Colorado, but let me see you take 2 out of 3 against the Mariners, and maybe I'll have a different tune. Because you don't play well against good teams. You're one of the biggest strikeout teams in baseball. When you face good pitching, you don't hit. It's obvious. You don't do it. Look at the records. I don't have to tell you guys this. You guys can look up the stats. You don't have to listen to me talk. You can shut off my stream. If you don't like what I say, you don't have to be here. And I tell Brave fans this all the time. You are happy to come. You can happy to talk about your team. You can root for your team. That's what sports is all about. But when you don't state the facts, you don't. I'm not saying the Mets won 12 out of 14 games against the Braves, but they do have the season series as of right now against the Braves. That's a fact. You're 500 against the Phillies. That's the fact. No, 63 and 24, but look at the 24 games you lost. How many games against good teams? Just look at this. Look at it since June 1st. Just look at it. You didn't play well against the Phillies. You didn't play well against the Mets until this final series. A lot of those losses, those 24 games that could have made the difference in the division, were against the Mets and the Phillies, and you failed. Very simple. Again, if you want to state the facts, look at the records. I looked at them. 500 against the Phillies. You're 2 games below 500 against the Mets. Right? That's a fact. If you don't state the facts, I just said they were 45 games over 500, 47 games over 500 since June 1st. I didn't say they were 20 games over 500. I didn't lowball them. And Lion, you probably haven't been with me from day one of this channel, or at least the beginning of the season, because I had the Braves winning the division in the beginning of the year when I did my division winners for the beginning of the season. But I didn't have either the Mets or the Braves winning more than 95 games. Both of them are going to win over 95 games easily. So it's not about the Braves being a bad team. It's not about the Mets being a bad team. Both of them are extremely good. The Mets took advantage of the Braves not playing well in April and May, right? I've stated that fact before. But you know what? Remember what Braves fans said. Remember, we were all there. When the Mets were having a really good April and May and the Braves were struggling, remember what they said. It comes down to September. Well, you know what? Those April and May games could actually be the difference of why the Braves never take over the NL East. That's true. Maybe if you were better in April and May, you wouldn't even be talking about a division. The Braves would probably be in first place by now, about 4 or 5 games, but they're not. Who said anything? You're not listening. Who's attacking the Braves about their ability to score runs? I said they strike out a lot. When you face good teams, you strike out a lot. You want to talk about the series at Citi Field when you didn't score no runs, and the only time you actually scored a lot of runs was that one game that Taijuan Walker couldn't get out of the first inning. Other than that, and a lot of those runs are against bad teams. You got to look at the stats. Please listen. I'm not going to show you the stats. I look at stats every single day with the Mets, and if I don't know what you're talking about, but have you heard me about the Mets and their scoring difficulties? Yet they're still finding a way to win series and still finding a way to play in first place. At the end of the day, the Braves haven't hit first place by themselves all year. It's unfortunate, but it's reality. Again, Brave fans, you can wave your banners, wear your shirts, wear your rings. You won your championship last year. Nobody's saying you weren't champions, but that's last year. It means absolutely nothing this year. And you know what? The big reason why the Braves aren't probably in first place is because Acuna has been garbage this year for the Braves. You want to talk about his knee? Well, sit him. Bring up somebody else, right? But you're not going to do that. You know, you had a 7-1 lead against Oakland in game one against them, you almost lost that game. A good team like the Braves shouldn't do that, right? But they did. But they won, right? The same reason why the Mets, how many games this year when they were losing 7-1 against the Phillies, they came back and won that ball game. You know what? Sometimes that happens. You know, the Mets have games like that. The Braves have games like that. But here's the difference. When the Braves don't hit, they don't win. That's very simple. The Mets, when they don't score and they're not hitting well, they still find ways to win ball games. We can go back to the Dodgers series. They weren't scoring a lot of runs in the Dodgers series, but they still found a way to win 2 out of 3. You know, the Braves, if we saw it in the series against the Mets at Citi Field, they had a ton of strikeouts. If I'm not mistaken, they had 59 strikeouts. If I'm not 58 or 59 strikeouts in that 5-game series against the Braves, against the Mets. That's a lot of strikeouts for a team who at any moment can bash you with 10 runs. Okay, that's how many teams? And the Mets haven't finished playing Milwaukee yet. The Mets lost 5 series this year altogether. San Diego, we lost. The Astros, we lost. The Brewers are still to be determined, but the Mets won the season series against the Cardinals. We won the season series against the Phillies, right? They're good teams as well, right? We want to talk about that, right? In the West, the Mets won the season series against the Dodgers, won the season series against many other good teams. You want to talk about the American League as well. They tied with the Yankees. The Astros, well, that's another story. Honestly, who knows with the Astros? I don't know, but the Mets don't have to worry about the Astros. The Braves don't have to worry about the Astros until the World Series. And that's a good point. The Braves don't, if they don't hit home runs, they don't win. They have a lot more, they do a lot more run producing more than you would say the Yankees, who are basically mostly a home run or bust, even though lately they've been better. Well, I mean, Lion, honestly, if Acuna was better than he was this year, the Braves would probably be in first place by a couple of games, but that hurts the lineup. And before anybody talks about, you know, the championship team in the Braves, you got Kenley Jansen, who showed up very small in the playoff many years for the Dodgers. So be careful what you wish for at the end of the games. And then the same thing with, you have Acuna, who the Braves didn't even need to win a World Series. And that guy who actually pushed you over the top and who was one of the most clutch players in the playoffs, and Freddie Freeman, is not there as well. As good as Matt Olson is, could we see him do it in the playoffs in pressure spots? I love Swanson. I think Albies is the spark plug to that Braves team. The records line, you're not listening. See, I understand you want to protect your Braves, but you're not listening. The Mets have a better record than the Braves against good teams. That's what I said. Those 24 losses, a lot of them are against the Mets and a lot of them are against the Phillies. That's the difference in the division. Last time I checked, the Braves and the Mets are a good team. Tim, if I'm scared, you'll know. Trust me. And the Mets are better against good teams record-wise against the Braves. It's just that it's a fact. Just because they have a winning record does not mean that they have a better record than the Mets. And let's be honest, what teams can you say the Braves actually dominated at all? The reason, again, we're going to keep on talking about it. The Braves are not in first place because they didn't dominate the Phillies like they should, right? They're one of the best teams in baseball. Why haven't they dominated the Phillies? The Phillies suck, right? Their defense is terrible. They got a really crusher lineup, but again, the Braves are much different lineup-wise against if you look at the Phillies lineup. The Phillies lineup is not a run-producing team. They're another team that are either a home run or bust. You keep Kyle Schwarber and at the time Harper out of in the ballpark, they're probably not winning. You know, the Braves have guys, you know, Swanson. They got guys like Travis d'Arnaud. They got Harris, guys like that, Grissom, who can play that small ball, can get that key hit. But again, if their big guys strike out and then those guys don't get on base, it's going to be a hard time for the Braves to score. And you even seen it against Oakland, right? They had a 7-1 lead and they almost blew it. So that bullpen that everybody likes to talk about, they almost gave up a big loss to Oakland. They held on, but they did it, right? That's the whole point. Yeah, I understand that, but again, Acuna, again, he's not producing the way he should be producing. He's supposed to be an MVP. That's how good he's supposed to be. And look, maybe that could be the difference, right? The first time all year, Acuna actually had a really good series against the Mets in Atlanta, the last series. But Lion, why haven't you brought up one time when the Braves finally won a series, Walker and Carrasco left in the second inning, and you faced minor league pitching in those 2 games? You didn't bring that up once. Why didn't you? I see the Braves bringing up excuses about blue pits against the Mets, and they're lucky. Why haven't I heard anything about the Braves facing the Mets and Carrasco and Walker came out because of injury? Look, you don't want to state all the facts. That's okay. But I'm telling you what the facts are. If you don't like the facts, that's not something that I can change. Okay, and then why the Mets are 14-5? You didn't bring that up against the Philadelphia Phillies. The Mets played the Braves as much as the Mets did early on when the Phillies were terrible, but yet you still couldn't beat them. And the Mets actually faced them with mostly everybody intact, except Harper. And the Braves actually faced the Phillies without Harper a couple times as well, and you're still 500 against the Phillies. It's a big difference now. Harper's in the lineup with Philadelphia now. The Phillies are certainly better. That's why I'm saying good teams, and that's why the records are what they are. Again, there's no change in the facts. There's no change in the facts. The Mets are 14-5 against the Phillies. The Braves are 500. The Mets are 9-7 against the Braves. There's the difference in why the Mets are in first place and the Braves are not. That's it. Very simple. It's a fact. I appreciate you protecting your team. You're representing your team. That's perfectly fine. I love it. But you keep on saying, I haven't heard you say anything about the Mets giving credit to the Mets team. One time you did. Earlier in the stream. After that, you find a way to give credit to the Braves when you're not giving credit to the Mets. As good as the Braves have been, they still haven't touched first place by themselves since April 10th of this year. And that's basically it. Joe, I know you're a fan of Kenley Jansen, and he's a good guy. I'm glad that he's healthy with that whole heart issue that he has. But there's no mistake. It wasn't Olsen, it wasn't Swanson, it wasn't Riley who put that. Those guys were there in April and May. When Harris came up, it lit a fire under their asses. And I give a ton of credit to Harris and even Grissom, who's showing that he can be a part of this team for a long, long time. Those guys were the spark plugs. I didn't see Riley doing it early on. I didn't see Olsen doing it early on. I didn't see Swanson doing it early on. Harris and Grissom is probably the key of why this Braves team turned their season around. And I give them a ton of credit. They're good kids. They're excellent players. But as much as you want to talk about the Braves being one of the best teams in baseball, because look, they're going on a 750 win percentage since June 1st. It's almost unheard of to continue that pace. If they do, they'll probably win the division. But again, if the Mets go 18-6 in the next 24 games, the Braves will have to win 106. They can't tie. So with that said, the Mets are in first place today by half a game. It was a half a game 3 weeks ago. About 2 months ago. It was 3 games. It was 5.5 when the Mets faced them in that 4-game series at Truist Park. Every time the Mets and the Braves seem like they're going to switch sides and they're going to change seedings, the Mets find a way to bounce back. And their backs were clearly against the wall. All the pressure in the world was with the Mets yesterday. Because if they would have lost one of those games yesterday, I'd probably be saying a totally different tune. because the Mets wouldn't deserve to win the NL East. But Lion, again, you're going by paper, right? The Braves on paper are better than the Mets. The Dodgers on paper are better than the Mets. But that's why you play the game. Again, the Mets beat the Dodgers in a season series. The Braves possibly can win one more game than the Mets in a season series. But you haven't yet. That's the difference. Like, I hate when people say, oh, the Braves are better than the Mets. Well, record shows they're not, right? Who are in first place right now? It doesn't matter. Again, in the playoffs, it doesn't matter that the Dodgers are the best team in the National League. Does that mean they're going to win the World Series? No, they don't. Same thing with the Braves. The Braves weren't the best team going into the playoffs last year. They won the World Series. Maybe the Dodgers should have won the World Series. Why do the Braves get the chance to win? You know, if the Braves are the best team, then why are we playing the playoffs then, right? Like, it just doesn't make sense. Oh, don't worry, Tim. I got 3 of those numbers. Look, all you have to look at, who has the better record right now? The Mets, right? If the Braves win the division and they have a better record than the Mets, the Braves are officially better than the Mets. But I don't care. If the games are played on play paper, let's play Stratomatic, if that's the case, right? Why even go on the field? Because Fried can go out that day and not have his, because he did it in the Mets series at Citi Field, right? He couldn't find the plate, one of the best pitchers in baseball in Fried, and the Mets beat him up. So it depends on that day. It depends on that week. You know, I'm not going to sit here and say that Scherzer and DeGrom are a guarantee to beat the Braves in the playoffs, because nobody knows that. You know, on paper, it looks pretty damn good, but that doesn't mean nothing. So what you're saying is, on paper, they are better than the Mets. Yeah, I agree with you. But we're not playing Stratomatic baseball here, right? We're not doing that. We're not playing fantasy baseball. We're playing reality baseball. And on the field, the Braves are 7-9 against the Mets. The Dodgers are 3-4 against the Mets. That's a fact. Until that changes, it doesn't matter. The Dodgers are better than the Mets and the Braves because of their record. If you want to go that route, the Dodgers are better than the Mets and better than the Braves based on record. On field, in the season, which means nothing in the playoffs, just ask the Cubs when they beat the Mets every game in the season, and then NLCS came and the Cubs couldn't win a game against the Mets, right? It doesn't matter in the playoffs, but right now, on September 8th, with 24 games to go for the Mets have a better record than the Braves. So right now, considering that they have a better record, the Mets are better than the Braves. You want to talk about paper? I agree with you. The Braves have a better team on paper than the Mets. But that's not how baseball is played. And if you only want to talk about roster and looking at paper, again, come to my house and play Stratomatic. We'll play it on the board. Other than that, it's pointless to talk about who's better or not. The Braves are clearly better than the Mets and the Braves, record-wise. But that doesn't mean, I mean, if you look at it, the Braves took the season series against the Dodgers, and the Mets took the season series against the Dodgers. Well, you think Dodger fans thinking that the Mets and the Braves are better than them? Record-wise, they're not. But on the field, for those 7 games, they are. It's very simple. All right, so with the Marlins series, the Mets are still to be determined for the pitching matchup. They didn't put it up yet for tomorrow, but Cabrera for the Marlins tomorrow. Then it's Pablo Lopez, and then it's Luzardo. The 3-game series, the pitching matchups against the Mets. The Mets are still TBD. I'm assuming because of the injury to Scherzer. He was supposed to pitch one of the games. I think it was Saturday. I think he was supposed to pitch for the Mets against the Marlins. So I don't know if that's rolling in David Peterson, or they might give Trevor Williams a start, or who knows. But it's still to be determined, so we don't know the pitching matchups. I'm assuming we'll find out sometime tomorrow. But Cabrera, Lopez, Luzardo is the 3 pitchers going for the Marlins, 2 righties and 1 lefty. The 2 righties are the first 2 games, and 1 lefty is the third game of the series. Look, the Marlins lost 9 in a row. There is no excuses for the Mets to lose the series to the Marlins. Again, I never go into a series thinking that they're going to sweep a series. It's always hard to sweep a series. But you know what? As bad as the Marlins have played, the Mets should sweep the series against the Marlins. But taking 2 out of 3, taking another series is what the Mets have done all year. They haven't swept a lot of series. They haven't won 10, 11 games in a row, but they consistently won series, and that kept them in the division lead the entire year. Well, Justin Verlander is considered one of the best pitchers in baseball. But there's no mistake. If Jacob deGrom is healthy, which he's been, he is the best pitcher in baseball. I mean, did you hear Mookie Betts after the Dodgers faced deGrom? He even said it. If he's not the best pitcher right now, he's the best pitcher ever. Like, Mookie Betts said that, an MVP, who might be number 2 in the MVP voting this year and already has an MVP. So, Dylan Cease, I mean, because he almost pitched a perfect game or a no-hitter. I mean, you want to know how many bad pitchers pitch no-hitters in perfect games? I mean, come on. Verlander, I don't know how he's doing it at that age, but if Justin Verlander can do it, I mean, why can't Jacob deGrom do it? You know, Max Scherzer is doing it at this age as well. So, I mean, look at a guy like Charlie Morton. He's not the best pitcher in the world, but he's a veteran that you clearly need in that rotation. So, when it comes to look, I never like facing a team that is going through a losing streak like the Marlins are. But one way to get them to keep their heads underwater is game 1 tomorrow, first inning, get on the board. Make them feel like they don't want to be at the ballpark. That worked against the Pirates. It's gonna work against the Marlins because the Pirates looked, as soon as the Mets scored runs early, they looked like they didn't even want to be on the field. So when it comes to the Marlins series, the Mets have to do that. They got to get to them early. They got to work the counts. They got to frustrate the pitcher on the mound. And if the Mets play the way they did the last 2 games, and that was working counts, putting the bat on the ball, they didn't strike out a lot in that doubleheader yesterday. The Mets put the bat on the ball, they're a totally different team. Well, Tim, according to some Braves fans, they're not very good. So, you know, I never seen a 100-win team that's a bad team. So I do think I'm very curious to see the lineup tomorrow. Kendrick, thank you for telling me, bringing up about the switching up the lineup. Very interesting about, throwing Alonso second, McNeil fourth, or whoever else fourth. That was kind of interesting. Well, I know, Ken. That's why even Brave fans come to a Mets channel, because they know I'm more realistic than their own Brave fans. Again, they don't want me to come on their stream. I asked them to have a normal conversation. I asked them to come on my stream. I even was willing to go on their stream and get bashed as much as possible. I asked them. I emailed them. I commented on their streams. I didn't say nothing bad. I said I want to have a baseball conversation from a Mets perspective and a Braves perspective. They don't want me on there because they know that I'm more down the middle than they are. And when you're a homer, you have rose-colored glasses on and you can't see the bigger picture. And I just don't like people like that at all. There's a reason why I'm probably one of the only channels that don't block fans of other teams. Because I could easily do that, but I don't. So I love. Now, Ken, see, I don't like trolls, so why should I troll? Look, you guys can do it all you want. Have fun. But I'm not a person who trolls. And the problem with Braves fans, and even I had one true to New York sports. I played baseball, high school baseball with one of the kids that run that YouTube channel. Check it out. They talk about all New York sports. He is a Yankee fan, but I was supposed to have him on my channel a couple weeks ago in the Mets right after the trade deadline. But the schedule just didn't work out. But I'm probably gonna have him on soon. And I know this kid for holy Christ, 20-something years, and You know what? When I was in high school, the Mets were terrible. 01 to 05, they weren't good. You know, the Yankees weren't. We were just after that dynasty. They made the World Series in that time, so I had to deal with a lot of nonsense from Yankee fans. My entire baseball team are Yankee fans, even my head coach. So, you know, if you want to check out True to New York Sports on YouTube, he always has a couple of guys with him talking about New York sports. It's pretty cool. He does a good job. He knows his stuff, but he's realistic about his Yankees. He's realistic about the Mets. When you are fair and you are looking at the bigger picture and you step back from your fandom, and not trying to be a homer, you kind of have a broader picture and look at all the facts, not just the facts you want to pinpoint to make your point, quote unquote. Jakey, I used to, I don't anymore. But again, you know, people go on Braves channels. You know, I was on Valhalla stream yesterday when when the Dodgers and Giants were on. I didn't troll one bit. I could have easily been an ass and be like, "Oh, look at this. Mets took the season series against the Dodgers." No, because I know that doesn't mean nothing. All that means is the fact that the Mets were a little bit better than the Dodgers in the season. The same thing with the Mets and the Braves record. Same thing with the Phillies and the Mets record against each other. That's it. It doesn't mean nothing in the playoffs. But I'm not one of those people that I could have easily went on there and trolled a ton of Dodger fans, including Valhalla. But he comes on my channel and is respectful. He's a Dodger fan. He doesn't come and troll. And I went on his channel. I was like, "Hey Valhalla, what's up, buddy? How you doing?" You know, I was like, "Oh, hopefully," I was like, "I hope the Dodgers and the Mets face each other in the NLCS." And we had good conversations. He even brought people to my channel and gave me a little bit of a promo for my channel. I didn't ask for it. I didn't promote my channel on his stream. I didn't. But when you're respectful, I even had people that, if they don't check out my stream, know about me and says, "Hey Rob, how you doing? Good luck to your Mets." You see, when you show respect to another fan base, they respect you a little bit more. Do you know? And I think a lot of people can attest to this. That doesn't make sense, Lion. I'm sorry. Listen, ask a Brave player who's the best pitcher in baseball. They're going to tell you DeGrom. They're probably not going to say that because they're whiny brats. And Mookie Betts, is he a good player or is he a role player? Mookie Betts said that he's the best pitcher in baseball, the best pitcher he's ever seen. Mookie Betts said that. And that's over. It's not like they didn't face Strider. It's not like they didn't face Fried. DeGrom, healthy, is the best pitcher in baseball. It's very simple. Again, you don't want to admit it. You don't have to. But yeah, I don't understand why numbers don't lie, but you don't want to listen to the numbers that I just gave you. But it's okay. You control. It's cute. But there is a Braves channel. It's a Homer channel, according to some Met fans here. So go there. You know, spill in your glory, right? Wear your ring. 2021 was a good year for you guys, not 2022. Sorry. So when it comes down to it, if you respect enough, look, you guys, I was live at Yankee Stadium, right? I was in right next to the dugout in the standing room only section where they have the ledges in left center field, right? All Yankee fans surrounded me. A lot of people were in my stream during the first inning when I was live. They saw the Yankee fans all around me. I was covered in Yankee fans. There's no doubt about it, right? There was a few Yankee fans that knew that I did a YouTube channel for the Mets and everything like that. And you know, they were trolling a little bit. They were, but you know what? I didn't go back after them. You know, when the Mets were doing well and the pitching was pretty good, you know, I cheered and everything like that. But guess what? When it came down to it, they realized that I was a baseball fan and I cheered when I should have cheered. I didn't troll when I could have trolled. And at the end of the game, yes, the Yankees won. They could have went all over me and been in my face. You know what they did? They shook my hand. They said, "You're a good sport. You dealt with the crap. You cheered on your team, but you dealt with the nonsense." They shook my hand. And these weren't 50-year-olds. These were 20, 25, 30-year-olds around in my age group. They did that because they realized, look, when you respect the game of baseball and you respect another fan base, even though I don't like Yankee fans, I think they're one of the biggest troll fan base in the country, and they're the biggest bandwagon fans. But when you show respect, especially when you're in another ballpark of another team, you show the respect, you root for your team, you don't do anything stupid. At the end of the day, they will treat you actually like a human being. And that's what they did at Yankee Stadium. Because everybody, Ken, you were there during that first inning. They were all over me. You heard them saying Mets suck. Or they were on top of my back. They were all over the place. But you know what? I kept my cool. I cheered on my team when they were needed to be cheered on. Me and the Yankee fan next to me were having a conversation. You know, when Vogelback, when they missed that pop up, the Pete Alonso pop up in right field, short right field, and Vogie hit the home run after that. Me and the Yankee fan were just talking about it, how that was going to be where things changed. And that was when the Yankees were going bad. So you can have a conversation with a fan of another fan base, but when you don't be realistic and you don't both state the facts back and forth, and you only want to look at the numbers that support only your point, that's not a conversation. All right? It's not a democracy in that case. All right? That's basically communism at that point, where you dictate your own rules and your own whatever numbers you want to look at and facts to state what will support your narrative. If you don't use all the facts and step back and stop being a homer, you'll realize that I'm not a fanboy. I'm not a homer at all. I can go back. You can check any video in 2021 and let me know when I was a homer. You would think I was a Brave fan or a Cardinals fan because I treated the Mets team like they were a piece of crap. Well, Joe, no, look, you were given points and comments that made sense. You didn't give me numbers or something that would just fit your narrative. Well, you know what? Hopefully Soroka stays healthy, because one thing, if you guys know who I am, I do not like to see anybody get hurt the way Soroka got hurt. I mean, Jesus. He did get hurt against the Mets, that whole Achilles injury, jumping off the mound, trying to cover first base and snapping his Achilles. We don't want to see that. That's disgusting. It's always more fun when both teams are completely healthy. When they're completely healthy, there's no more excuses for either side. But the Braves got to take care of business on the West Coast. The Mets got to got to do what they have to do down south in Miami. Both teams have to continue to do what they have been doing. The Braves since June, the Mets all year. It's very simple. This is easy math. This is very easy math. I think this West Coast trip, put together with that Phillies series, that's a 9-game strip, 3 against Seattle, 3 against the Giants, 3 against Philadelphia. 6 of those games are on the West Coast. 3 of those games are at home against Philadelphia. I honestly believe in the next 9 games that I actually watch. The Mets play the Marlins, the Pirates, and the Nationals, I believe. I think I'm right about that. I believe I'm correct. Let me see. I'm probably wrong, but that's okay. But that's why if I'm wrong, I try to fix my mistakes at the very least. Let's see. Obviously, Miami for 3, and then they come back home. I know that. Oh, excuse me. The Cubs for 3, and then Pittsburgh for 4. So this is a 10-game stretch for the Mets. 3 away, 7 at home. 3 against Miami away, 3 against Chicago at home, and 4 against Pittsburgh at home. This 9-game stretch for the Braves and this 10-game stretch for the Mets, I do believe, is going to determine who is going to be leading first place by September 18th, which gives about 2 weeks left of the season. I think it's going to determine who has a respectable lead, 2 or 3 games. And if both teams go through that 9 and 10 game stretch with flying colors and they both go 8-2 or 9-1, well, guess what? The last 2 weeks is going to be even more fun. So you do like to add your perspective line, that's fine. But you're only given the numbers and the facts that support your argument. I gave you a lot of Braves numbers that, considering that, you still don't want to agree with. Like you gave me the numbers 7-9 the Braves are against the Mets. Well, that means the Mets are better right now in the season series. The same reason why the Braves are not in first place, because they didn't play well against the Phillies this year. The Mets have. It's a big difference. So when it comes down to it, this 10-game stretch for the Mets and this 9-game stretch for the Braves, I think is going to determine who has a decent to comfortable lead going into the last week and a half to 2 weeks of the season for the National League East. The Braves struggle against the Philadelphia Phillies this year. The Phillies did get Harper back. The Phillies have been playing at a really good pace in the second half. Seattle, ever since they got Luis Castillo, has been one of the best teams in baseball. So that's not going to be an easy series for the Braves. Then the 3 games against the Giants. The Giants haven't been as good this year, but they are a team that has decent, really good pitching, and they can beat you at home. They're a good home ballpark type of team. I think this 10 and 9 game stretch for the Mets and the Braves is going to determine who's going to be leading first place by a reasonable margin. Not, it's not going to, you're not going to win the division after that, but it's going to be very, very interesting to see what's going to be the outcome of that 10-game stretch for the Mets and the Braves. So with that said, guys, I will do a stream tomorrow for the Miami game. I'm doing a little golf trip, so to speak, with my dad on Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. So I will not be streaming. I'll probably do a Mets Talk live from my phone, probably, or something like that, or Mets pregame. But I will be doing a live stream tomorrow for the Mets versus Marlins for game 1 of the series. We still don't know who's pitching for the Mets, but Cabrera for the right-hander, Cabrera for the Marlins is pitching, who's pitched very well for them, 2.43 ERA. Mets got to take the Marlins 9-game losing streak. Let it be 12. I'm sorry, 11 at the end of this series. So the Mets can come back home in winning ways against the Cubs and the Pirates, 2 of the worst teams in the Central. They got to get it done. Very simple. 9-game stretch for the Braves, Seattle, Giants, Phillies. The Mets, 10-game stretch, Marlins, Cubs, Pirates. Probably will determine who is going to have a comfortable lead going into the last week and a half to 2 weeks of the season for the NL East. So with that said, take care. Enjoy your off day. Mets and Braves fans can take a sigh of relief considering they're both off today. No change of hands. No scoreboard watching. No Narco playing at Truist Park. No Narco playing at Citi Field. All we have to do is relax, have a good meal, get some good rest, get ready for tomorrow's games. Braves in Seattle, Mets in Miami. Both of those teams, Mets have a better chance of taking advantage of the Braves playing a really good team. We'll see if that happens. With that said, guys, thank you for tuning in to Mets Talk Live. Always, always, always keep on coming back for more. I'll see you tomorrow night for Mets versus Marlins, 6:30 I think it's 6 o'clock game. Let's see. It's a 6:40 game, so I'll see you at 6 o'clock tomorrow for the Mets pregame and throughout the live stream. So remember, before you go, please hit on that like button. I will see you guys tomorrow. Have a good night. Let's go Mets. 87-51 is the Mets record. 24 games to go. Have a good night, guys. Let's go Mets.